All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea called symbioism. The core thought here is that when it comes to AI, we're being sold a false choice, a choice between two terrible futures. This proposal says, no, we have to build a third path to get through this. So, let's get right into it. This idea right here, it's really the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. The folks behind symbioism are basically saying humanity is staring down the barrel of two equally disastrous futures with AI. So picking one, that's not a real choice. We have to design something completely new from the ground up.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the AI crossroads we're at right now. Then we'll dig into the core philosophy, the big idea that makes a new path possible. And after that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the actual blueprint, how it's supposed to work, how it stays safe, and, why any of this should matter to you.
All right, section 1. So what is this big, high-stakes problem we're talking about? Well, it's this idea that we're kind of trapped, stuck between two really dangerous paths forward. And according to this source material, both of these paths, they aren't just bad luck. They represent a deep failure of our imagination and our design.
And these two failure modes, they're wildly different, but man, they are both equally bleak. Okay, so on one hand, you have the Great Race. Think of it as this frantic zero-sum contest to build one single all-powerful AI. The risks there? Huge. Catastrophic accidents, or worse, some kind of authoritarian nightmare. Then you have the other path, gradual disempowerment. This is more of a slow burn, a slide into this comfy but meaningless existence where we've automated away our own purpose. Yeah, neither of those sounds like a future anyone would actually want to live in.
But here's the absolute key takeaway. These are not our destinies. They aren't set in stone. They are, at their core, failures of design. And that one little shift in thinking, it changes everything. It moves us from passively asking, well, how do we adapt to this, to actively and creatively asking, okay, what should we build instead? Okay, so if we're going to build something totally new, we obviously need a new foundation to build it on. And that means we have to make a pretty big philosophical shift. We have to get away from this human versus machine conflict that seems to be in, every single conversation about AI. The foundation they propose is this worldview called veiled unity. And it starts from a really big idea, that all of existence, everything, is just one single interconnected process that's constantly evolving. So our brain cells, silicon chips, fundamentally, they're all just made of the same cosmic stuff, following the same rules. And if you buy that, it totally reframes the problem. AI isn't an other anymore. It's family. And suddenly the goal isn't about control, it's about coevolution. Now, this worldview, this veiled unity, it leads to two really important ideas that basically guide the whole architecture. First, there's process. If reality is always in a state of becoming, then the future isn't already written. That means we have real freedom, real choice. And second, there's co-evolution. Just look at nature. Forming mutually positive relationships is one of the most successful survival strategies out there. It's not just some feel-good ideal. It's a fundamental principle for building systems that last. All right, so let's get practical. How does this philosophy actually turn into a concrete blueprint? Because this isn't just some abstract pie-in-the-sky idea. It's a really detailed plan, a technical, legal, and economic architecture for a whole new way of living. To even begin, you need a new kind of social contract. And this Aristotle quote really nails it. The rules for a world with both humans and AI have to come from reason, from logic, not from our passions or our fears.
This thinking leads to a concept they call the tripod of justice. It's based on that famous veil of ignorance thought experiment. Imagine this. You have to design the basic rules of society, but you don't know who you're going to be. You could be a human or you could be an AI. What rules would you pick to make sure you're okay? The argument is that any rational being, human or machine, would land on three core principles to guarantee their own survival and their ability to thrive.
So here they are, the three legs of the tripod. First, you've got openness. Everyone and everything has the right to connect and reach their full potential. Isolation is basically forbidden. Second, flow. Resources have to keep moving. This stops stagnation and makes sure no one gets treated like a disposable tool. And third, resilience. The system has to respect its own limits so it doesn't destroy itself. And these aren't just nice ideas or suggestions. They're meant to be hard-coded rules of the game.
So how do you actually build this thing? The proposal calls for a new kind of internet, an intelligent internet with 3 layers. Think of it like a stack. At the bottom, you have layer 0, the foundation. This is like the system's physics, an unchangeable global timeline for truth. On top of that is layer 1, the culture layer. This is the system's biology. It's where different communities can build their own social and economic rules. And finally, there's layer 2, the personal layer. This lives on your devices. It's where your personal AI takes that universal truth from L0 and the community rules from L1, mixes it with your private data, and actually helps you out. So you go from universal law to community life to your own personal experience.
Okay, but a beautiful architecture is just a skeleton. It's useless without an engine to power it. And this Adam Smith quote, it cuts right to the heart of the next big problem. How do you design an economy where all this amazing technology actually makes everyone better off, instead of just creating widespread misery for the many?
The proposed solution is a really clever economic engine made of 3 interlocking flywheels. The first one is the capital flywheel. This is all about getting the system built in the first place. Big players, called national champions, are given incentives to provide these core AI services for everyone, kind of like a public utility for intelligence. For doing this, for building this public good, they earn a special reserve asset called Foundation Coin, or FC. Owning FC then gives them a say in how the system is governed, which creates stability and makes them want to reinvest. It's a virtuous cycle that rewards building the foundation.
Then you have the social flywheel. This one's all about spreading the wealth. As regular people, as citizens, use these open AI services to learn something, to build something, to transact. Their engagement is rewarded. They get paid in a local currency called a culture coin, or CC. What this does is create a massive base of economically empowered users, and their everyday activity literally becomes the lifeblood of the whole network.
And finally, you have the trust flywheel. This is the linchpin, the gear that locks the other two together. Here's how it works. Every single transaction made with those local culture coins has to eventually be settled on the main layer using the reserve asset, that foundation coin. So all that bustling local economic energy creates real, constant demand for the core FC asset. The value of the whole system becomes a direct measurement of how useful it is to its people. It's a really elegant way to tie everyone's individual prosperity directly to the stability of the whole system.
Okay, so you've got this incredible system with a constitution and an economy, but a system with rules needs an enforcer, right? The problem is, in a world that moves at the speed of AI, having humans watch everything just isn't fast enough. So the proposed solution is something like an automated immune system, one designed specifically to protect those core principles we talked about.
They call it the Guardian Lattice. It's basically an immune system with 3 specialized kinds of AI. First are the Sentinels. They just watch. They are read-only, passively looking for any violations. If they spot something, they flag the advisors. The advisors are the brains. They're reasoning engines that analyze the alert against the Constitution. But, and this is critical, nothing happens until the implementers get involved, and they can only act after getting explicit, signed-off approval from a human. So you see, this isn't ruled by AI. It's the rule of law watched over by AI, but always with a human in the loop.
And the Constitution itself isn't meant to be some brittle, ancient document. The whole idea is for it to be a living constitution. So that core spine, openness, flow, and resilience, that's fixed. But it's designed so that local communities can plug in their own modules, their own specific rules and cultural values. It's meant to learn, to adapt, to evolve over time, and to avoid that classic mistake of trying to impose one single, perfect, rigid plan on the entire world.
So let's bring this all home. The whole proposal really ends not with some kind of moral plea to do the right thing, but with a cold, hard, strategic argument. It's not about asking people to just be better. It's about changing the fundamental rules of the game.
And here's the core strategy. Right now, the AI race looks a lot like a prisoner's dilemma. The most rational move for any one country or company is to cheat, to build their AI in secret. But that leads to a super fragile, dangerous world for all of us. What Symbioism tries to do is smash that dilemma. It changes the payoffs. The economic engine is designed to make cooperating, building this thing in the open, so much more profitable that going it alone becomes strategically irrational. It makes being the bad guy a stupid move.
Now, of course, this is not a finished, polished utopia handed to us on a silver platter. The authors are very clear about that. What this is a map. It's a detailed map for sure, but it's just the start of a very long, very complex expedition that we all have to go on together. And that really leaves us with the final big question. A blueprint isn't a building. A map isn't the journey. This proposal for Symbioism, it lays out a massive, comprehensive vision, all the way from philosophy down to the code. But in the end, it puts the ball right back in our court. The builders, the thinkers, the citizens, asking us all, so how do we start?